There's too many versions of me. I don't really know who the real one is. I act completely differently around different people, to the point I don't know who I actually am. All I do is mirror people, steal the aspects I like about them, and cram it into my brain to try and replicate. I have so many different versions of me, and they're all different depending on who I talk to and even what account I'm on. I don't know who I am. I don't know my favorite food. I don't know the style of clothing I want to wear. I don't know how I want others to perceive me. I don't know how I want to perceive myself. I don't know my favorite movie or series. I don't know a lot about myself, honestly. But yeah, there's like so many different masks or versions of me, and I genuinely don't really know who I actually am. I grew up being the weird, undiagnosed autistic kid that people excluded a lot when I was younger. I tried to be more likable by acting how others acted, but I kind of lost myself in the process. Ironically, it never worked, and I've always been viewed as weird despite the masking, so it was all for nothing anyway. When I was younger, think young child up until preteen, I tried to be different people entirely. I would entirely steal the personality of the characters I liked, mimic them, and try to convince myself I was them. Rinse and repeat, over and over. Was that healthy? Probably not. But I was not in a healthy state of mind then. I'm not that surprised that I liked acting classes so much when I was younger. Looking back on this, LOL. I don't really know if there is a real me, to be honest. They're all technically me, obviously. But which version is the most true to who I am? I don't know. I don't think I'll ever find that out. Had my first foursome that included my best friend. Me, M23, and my best friend, M22, were at my parents' summer house last week Sunday, and he's one of the only people that knows I'm bi, but I've never really wanted to do anything with him since I view him like a brother and it'd be weird, but he is objectively very attractive. We were out in town, getting drunk, and met 220 yo girls there, two gorgeous brunettes, and started buying them drinks. After a while, we invited them over back to the house and continued drinking there. My parents recently installed a hot tub on the back deck, and my friend suggested that we all get in. The girls said they didn't have their bathing suits, to which he said that no one wears bathing suits in a hot tub, which was so hot. We all got naked, got in, laughed, messed around, started doing dares, and we dared them to make out, after which they dared us to make out. It ended up being a free-for-all, and we went back inside to fuck. Me and my friend didn't fool around that much, but there definitely was some touching, a bit of mutual stroking, some frauding, and I took the opportunity to play with his balls and slap his ass while he was fucking one of the girls, which he didn't seem to mind. Watching the two girls go at it was also incredibly hot. I don't think I'll ever experience something as hot as that. I feel so grateful. I don't think there's a better way to bond, ha ha ha. Going forward, fit notes required. The background here is that during work, I had an accident that damaged my back, slipped discs that didn't resolve, and subsequent additional damage due to unnatural wear and tear from compensating poor posture and gait. I had a fit note that cleared me for light duties. Now, most of my store team were, and are, these guys are my family even years later, incredibly supportive of my various limitations. Depending on whether I was having a good day or bad, they'd shuffle things around. We did that for everyone. We worked to accommodate whoever needed a helping hand, just to clarify that I wasn't given special treatment. My main difficulty is standing still. Sitting, walking, moving, those are fine. On a good day, I can stand at the self-checkouts for a couple of hours, with some pacing. On a bad day, not at all. Good days I can work delivery or backstock. Bad days I did decarding, facing up, putbacks, write-offs, and sitting on tills. However, one colleague was not. She considered it drastically unfair that everyone worked around my damage. So much so that she went above everyone to file a complaint to the store manager that I should be forced to do self-checkouts too. Sunday evening, a charming message was sent to the work WhatsApp group by one of the lower managers stating that going forward, having pain here so you can't do self-checkouts, having pain there so you can't do delivery, will no longer be accepted. Unless you have a fit note, you can't refuse to do your tasks. I was scheduled to work on the Monday, thankfully a closing shift, so I had a narrow window to work with. Monday 8 a.m., The stars aligned. I was blessed to snag a telephone call back from a GP. If you're in the UK, you'll know how hard it is to talk to a doctor, let alone see one since the plague. It's a nightmare. Anyway, I explained the situation to her, and she was furious. Emailed me an amended fit note to hand in to work. That afternoon, I cheerfully went in and handed it to the duty manager for the shift, who read it, and then promptly started pissing herself laughing before letting me get started. A 3-month fit note that prohibited me from any lifting, pulling, standing, anything remotely strenuous whatsoever, and stated frequent, regular breaks, effectively barring me from all of the tasks I did on good days. Apparently that colleague blew a gasket, filed a complaint with the area manager who dismissed it, whereupon she told him she'd go to HR about this, as well as his inaction, and was promptly told that this would constitute harassment and disability discrimination if she insisted. Well, you did want a fit note. Entitled mom lets her kids run wild, gets mad I didn't let them touch my food. AIDA removed me for being too spicy. So, our AIDA removed this for violating their must be fair and accurate rule, but I'll let y'all be the judge. I, 23M, Netherlands, went to McDonald's with my fiancé for a chill meal. We're child-free, but I'm genuinely fine with kids, as long as they behave. I'm a punk with tattoos and piercings, so I get stared at by kids often. Doesn't bother me. What does bother me? Kids screaming, running around, throwing toys, and climbing on furniture while the parents sit back like it's a spa. That's what happened here. 2 young kids were literally using tables and chairs as a jungle gym, yelling and throwing a toy car. There was even an iPad on their table, but they ignored it. The 3 moms, one clear Karen leader, paid no attention. The kids kept running right up to our table, so we turned a chair to block the path and I set up a barrier with a few more. Just wanted to eat in peace. That's when Karen gets up with her goblins and storms over. Karen: is there a problem? Me: yeah. Your kids keep running up to us, so I blocked the table. Karen: you're looking at them strange. You're unfriendly. Me: nah, just trying to eat. She starts yelling, this is McDonald's, not a 5-star restaurant. This is the Amsterdam ghetto. Me: yeah, and it's not a playground either. Control your kids. Then she hits me with, this is the Netherlands. We speak Dutch here. Me: then why are you speaking English? And finally, are you on crack? You look like you're on crack. I sarcastically said, yes, I am. I use ketamine too. She screamed, F you, while flipping me off and stormed back. I stayed calm and didn't raise my voice once. Before leaving, I placed my ADHD meds on top of my ice cream so she'd see it, then jokingly said, we should try cocaine tonight, as we walked out. I never insulted her or her kids first. I didn't yell. I matched her energy and said what the staff couldn't. Some friends say I was too much. Others say I handled it like a pro. Let me know, what do you guys think? To clarify, no, this is not AI. And oh, I wish I was lying about this. Mom wants me to reconnect with my absent father. Hey, y'all! So on Sunday, I, 20F, got a text from my dad, and he texted me. I have made it clear to him in the past that I have no interest in speaking to him and have not spoken to him in 3 or 4 years. In the past, my mother has told him that I do not want to talk to him. Yet, my mother texted me today, and she told me to talk to my dad because he really cares about me. My mom thinks I should talk to my dad because he's my parent, but I truly don't feel comfortable connecting with him. My dad was quite absent from my life, and my mom raised me by herself. I don't hold any hatred towards my father, but connecting with him makes me feel uncomfortable. I do not want to force a relationship with someone that I genuinely don't want in my life. However, my mom keeps saying that I need to talk to him, and I feel stuck. My dad has gone as far as showing up at my mother's house out of nowhere in the past, simply to gift me things or to spend time with me. I understand that he's my dad, but I don't know how to approach this situation since he roped my mother into this. What should I do about this? Got even in my own way. Decades ago, I was in a relationship with a guy who lived with his mother. Things got a little tangled in my life and I ended up living with them for about 6 months. This was my first experience living with someone outside my family. I had a set of really nice roasting pans that were my favorite for lasagna or pot roast, etc., and I used them that year to cook Thanksgiving dinner. I had to work that night, so his mother told me she would get things cleaned up. I had no reason to doubt her, because the kitchen was always reasonably clean. Got back the next morning, things are put away in their usual spots, food safely stored in the fridge, the whole 9 yards. Christmas rolls around, I take my pans off the top of the fridge, and out of their sealed bags to find a moldy, congealed mess of nasty turkey leftovers still in my now destroyed pan. I moved out over the next couple days, but before I left, I duct-taped a potato to the back of the least-used drawer in the kitchen. My parents are divorced, and now my mom is acting very differently. I, 15M, am having problems with my mother. For context, my parents separated last November and now live apart. I have always gotten along very well with my father. My mother is kind of an example of why this subreddit exists. She always wants to talk about something that happened to me, etc. I usually refuse because 1, I don't have anything to talk about, and 2, I don't feel like talking to her, not the best way, but that's how it is. One evening she came into my room while I was gaming and said that it was so difficult to talk to me and how unfortunate that was. In the same breath, she told me it was late and I should stop gaming. She said she wanted to phrase it nicely without telling me directly to stop. We also had an argument about my mobile phone, which cost £10 a week at the time. It was her turn to pay, but she didn't, and got upset because I wasn't available. I explained to her that it was her turn, but she said my father should pay. I pointed out that she also had to pay. She replied that she was already paying for this, and asked me what my father was paying for. Of course, I had no idea what my father was paying for. It should be noted that she doesn't pay more than the current child benefit. I had no idea, so she told me that my father shouldn't have bought a new car and a new watch. Her argument for everything. This escalates until I use words like shit or ass, and she says, "But that's not the level I raised you to have," although she doesn't know what my level is, and I don't know what hers is. Another thing, my parents both have access to my account and can see who is debiting what, which my mother does. The amount in question is €1,800. After several requests from my father, this amount reappears in my account after a few weeks, all without any consultation. I could write a whole book about the things my mother has done. I mean, she's my mother, but I'm not sure what's going on with her. English is not my native language, but I hope you understand what I mean. Spilled her beer on my wife's feet and ignored it. We were at the recent Wu-Tang Clan show at Madison Square Garden the other night, and this small group of people in front of us seemed to be having a great time. It was an odd pairing of 2 middle-aged folks, and what I'm assuming was their 30-something-year-old daughter? Not sure. Anyway, you could tell she was a type, taking selfie videos every 5 minutes and had no idea why she was there other than to party. Which, to be fair, that's fine, and I don't really care if people do it regardless of how cringy I find it. But she was flailing herself all around and dancing like she was the next Oracle of Delphi. This is where we had a problem. She had sat her large beer cup on her seat, and my wife's seat was just behind hers. About 1 minute after she set it there, she did one of her prophecy reading maneuvers and knocked the beer over backwards onto my wife's feet and filling one of her shoes partially. It also splashed over onto one of my buddies sitting in the row on the other side of my wife's seat. This woman-child looked back at me and my wife in horror for 1 second, realized she had messed up, and then decided she was going to go on about her business and ignore the issue completely. She did not apologize, she didn't acknowledge, she just kept on going. This was the moment that upset me the most. Sure, getting a beer down your shoe sucks, but what really sucks is when the person who does it has absolutely no remorse for what they had done, accident or not, and chooses not to apologize. So I did what any normal person would do in that situation. I picked up the beer cup. They had lids with large holes, but still some form of lid, so it was still about half full, and removed the lid and dumped it all over her seat, foam cushion for good absorption, and a small amount over the front onto her feet as well. She looked back for a brief second when her feet got wet, and we met eyes as I was doing my best customer service-style smile for her while holding the now empty beer cup over her seat. She quickly looked away and continued her dancing, choosing to continue to ignore the situation. The best part was her knowing she couldn't sit down, but also not wanting to tell the two she was with what had happened, because she already accepted mentally she wasn't going to admit fault. So she stood awkwardly when the other two sat down, and after a minute the guy, father, also quite intoxicated, pulled her down into her seat after she was hesitating for so long. The beer started oozing out of the cushion the second she sat down, and she convulsed, TBH, in about the same way she had been while standing the whole time, and writhed around in the beer chair for a minute while being held into it by her male companion. You have to love it. Before standing back up with a completely soaked ass full of beer. Her pants were wet from the belt line, down past her knees. She continued to get pulled down into her seat by the guy multiple other times before the show ended. I don't think I've had a small petty revenge work out so well in my favor before, and it was quite thrilling. Thankfully, I was able to put a smile back on my wife's face after she saw her stand back up the first time. My mom, the only suffering brat in our city. Well, there are so many fake AI stories, so I'm adding one that isn't genuine AI. My mom wrote to our mayor maybe 2 weeks ago and got the automatic response in a letter that I saw last week. I didn't read all of it, but it was something like, "Thank you for your concern. The mayor is a busy person, so his assistant will deal with your ideas, blah, blah, blah." The very idea of her being the only suffering person in this case is off. You see, there is to be a new tram line in my city for which we even have some money from EU, and it is a very large investment, plus in one place they had to change existing roads and add another level to one of intersections. The idea is that trams and buses go underground and cars use the current level 0, ground, and +1, above ground. And there were notifications everywhere, including local TV stations and newspapers probably 6 months ago, explaining changes in bus and tram routes and how all of it affects people living there and so on, repeated constantly when construction started 3-ish weeks ago. And people living near the new line are numerous, possibly a town 65000, so it's not only my mom. Yet she decided she was and is the only victim here and wrote to our mayor. Not to some people in companies working there, but to him directly. And no, I didn't think, as all good karma bots do, it was a joke. I think this is a huge embarrassment and nothing to laugh about. But my mom says, that will show him. Probably the mayor, but I'm not quite sure what. Also note that my mom is retired. Even with rerouted buses and trams, it takes her 40 minutes longer to go in the affected direction, and most of shops she likes, plus her family doctor, are in the opposite direction, so she stays trapped in traffic jams generated by this new line maybe once, twice a year. Young people traveling to from workplaces experience massive traffic jams and rerouted buses and trams at least twice every day. But somehow they understand the situation and don't berate innocence. A toddler-level entitlement, if you ask me. My ex destroyed my confidence with other men. I was engaged to someone about 15 years ago, and everything with us moved fast. He proposed after 3 months. But when we started actually making plans for a wedding, I felt like he was rushing me, and he started to show his controlling side. If it took me more than 5 minutes to respond to a text, he would call and ask why I was ignoring him, even though I wasn't. When he would get mad, he would storm out and leave. I just felt like I didn't do anything right. One night we went to his friend's house for dinner. They were a gay couple who he had been friends with for years. While he was inside with one of them, I was outside talking to the other, and he proceeds to tell me that one night while the three of them were hanging out watching a movie, my fiancé put his arm around this guy, and this guy thought it felt flirty. Well, the next day, I called my fiancé and told him what this person said, and instead of being upset with his friend, he blew up at me and told me it was over. He had his sister come get my engagement ring. For weeks I tried to talk to him, and the last time I tried he told me I was bad at naughties and had tree stump legs. I never forgot it, and it has destroyed my confidence in myself and has made it impossible for me to believe I can ever confide in someone of believe they won't leave me. Seen and not heard. I work in contract security as an armed guard at a major utility company. I pick up extra work on my days off from my main site covering banks that the company I work for has as clients as well. Today I covered a branch of a large bank that has a white and red logo, like stagecoaches, and traces their roots back to the mid-1800s. After I was allowed to enter the bank, the branch operations manager gave me a rundown and read me the riot act right off the bat. I had a feeling at that time that this might be a long day. 30 minutes later, a bank customer came in looking lost and said she had an appointment with a banker. I greeted her and told her to take a seat and they'll be with her shortly. That prompted Madame Baum to come out from the back and get on to me for telling the customer to take a seat. Told me that I wasn't allowed to give any direction to anyone coming in as it could cause problems. Okay, that's reasonable enough. An hour or so later, a man entered the branch with a problem and he was a bit irate because of his issue. Baum said she could try to help him and ran into issues which caused him to get more irate, especially since she was not acting very helpful and kept putting the blame on him for something that appeared to be the bank's fault. She came out from behind the teller desk and was looking for a banker to help the gentleman, and while she was wandering around, I engaged him in conversation. He was wearing a Marine Corps hat, and I started chatting with him about what he did in the Corps and other things along that line. She finally figured something out, and instead of calling the gentleman over, she called my name and did a throat slash. After she was finished with the gentleman and wasn't able to help him while still blaming him for the situation, she called me over and proceeded to lay into me about how we had just spoke about talking to people. She said that I'm here for presence only, and I'm not here to de-escalate, one of the primary purposes of a security guard, or to speak with the clients. She said that my conversation with the man could cause problems for the bank, despite it not being about the bank at all, and that I wasn't to talk to the customers at all. I asked her if she wanted me to be seen and not heard, and she indicated that's what she wanted from me. She once again threatened to call my supervisor if I had a problem and didn't understand her. Message was received loud and clear. I notified my supervisor of the incident and then decided I was going to comply with her orders to the letter. Cue malicious compliance with me deciding to communicate for the rest of the day with signs, from the limited sign language I know from my wife and friends, and gestures. People would ask me questions and I'd just gesture and point the "to please wait here" sign. People would talk about the weather and I'd just nod. I directed people to stand in line with gestures and nods. This went on until just before noon when the branch manager pulled me into his office with Madame Baum. He proceeded to talk about their concerns and asked me what had happened with the irate gentleman. I filled him in, and it was obvious by his reaction that my version of events didn't match with what Madame Baum had told him. Nevertheless, he proceeded to tell me how I was supposed to do things and that we had to work together. According to the both of them, anything that I say, even not related to the bank or financial matters, can cause problems, and it's best to not say anything, especially to irate customers. Afterwards, as I was leaving his office, I informed him that I'd already let my supervisor know of the situation and that any further issues would be best brought to his attention. I'm half expecting them to call my supervisor to have me removed early, and that will be perfectly fine with me as I never plan to cover this location in the future. I am eating lunch now, but I plan on continuing my malicious compliance after my break ends. I'll be present and do my rounds as I'm supposed to do, but nothing says that I have to greet people or discuss anything with anyone. Asterisk, asterisk, end of day. Update, asterisk, asterisk. When speaking to my ops manager at the end of the day, he informed me that they requested that I not return to the branch because of how I responded to their request to not speak to the customers. Told him that was fine as I was going to request to not go back to that branch anyways, and asked if I was getting wrote up. He said that I was in the clear as it was obvious that I was following the client's instructions to the letter. I know it's probably not a very satisfying conclusion based on a lot of the stories here, but it's a good conclusion in the contract security world when following the client's instruction literally and engaging in malicious compliance. I masturbate to autistic people. I am a 17M, and one time I saw an autistic adult woman with Down syndrome, and I thought how cute she was. I went to a bathroom stall quickly in the local pizza shop by me and jerked off to her face in my mind. I walked out to wash my hands, and I wasn't finished, so I did it again, and I left some on the door. I ran out and then found my dad and said I had to use bathroom. A couple months later, it happened again when I saw someone in a wheelchair making the loud noises, and I almost ejaculated in my boxers, so I ran to a nearby exit sign and went to town. I walked out like nothing happened, even though they didn't know my truth. I am scared my parents will find out and punish me. It's not the first time. I jerk off to midget pornography every time I get a chance. I did something I can't tell my boyfriend. Well, I absolutely can. I just don't want to. Ex of 5 years, broken up a year ago. Now dating a lovely man, only been 2 months. Ex has been trying to contact me lately, and I thought about it and agreed to put the last nail in the coffin. Just one call, and he can never contact me ever again. Because I never really said goodbye after he cheated on me. I just left. He had so many problems of his own. I feel nothing for him now. Absolutely none. My heart only aches because I don't know how I will explain to my boyfriend that I agreed to call my ex for one last goodbye, a goodbye I never even felt the personal need for, but I thought and realized I never want to have something of ex ever again. Not a thought, nothing, not even the slightest effect on my relationship. I want this heartache of not telling my boyfriend to die on its own. I believe it will, because ex does not matter to me and never will. And now, he has no grounds to try to sneak his way into my inbox ever again. I did one last favor for ex, and now he is done. My mom was unalived 5 years ago, and I still text her phone every day. Her number doesn't even work anymore. It's probably been reassigned to someone else. But I still send her texts, random things. Made it home safe. I miss you. You'd love this sunset. I know no one's reading them, but it's like a thread I can't let go of. Some part of me thinks if I stop texting, it'll mean I've really lost her. No one in my life knows I do this. I guess I'm afraid they'll tell me to move on, but I don't want to. Roommate tried to sleep with my fiancé. Me and my fiancé have been couch surfing while waiting for our move-in date. We have all of our stuff packed into the vehicle, and we are only 2 weeks away. The last place we were at was with a couple that she knew. The wife was pregnant, and for a few days, things were going well. They gave us a tour of their house and everything, and me and the husband got to flex our cooking muscles together. We got along really well and even exchanged numbers so we could keep in touch. Not long into our stay, however, my fiancée calls me while I'm at work, saying she needs to talk to me as soon as I get off. When she picks me up, she tells me she's been in the car all day. She told the roommates that she went shopping. She started crying and told me that the husband had grabbed her ass and tried to get her to sleep with him. My initial reaction was explosive, but when I calmed down, I told her that we can go back and get our stuff. When we got there, the couple was sitting on the couch watching a movie. He called me buddy when I came in, and I had to resist the urge to throw something at him. I told him I needed to shower. Meanwhile, my fiancé quietly grabbed the few things we brought in. In the bathroom, I took a marginally decent crap. To save you the nasty details, the conditions were right for me to scar him for life. He had this overpriced $200 loofah in the shower. I used it to scrub my body, felt great. Then I used it to clean my unwiped bottom, making sure to not wash it and put it up where he usually hung it. After that amazing shower, I came out and got dressed. I checked on my fiancé in the car and went back in for one last gut punch. I told his wife that he tried sleeping with my fiancé, and to no one's surprise, I find out this isn't his first time. I left in a hurry while they argued, and me and my girl got the hell out of Dodge. I got a text the next day, one of him in all caps. WTF is wrong with you, followed by a picture of his loofah covered in dry fecal matter. I simply sent a laughing emoji and blocked his number. When the big company doesn't trust employees, bored of the repetitive posts maybe from bots, I have a different story about economic incentives. I used to work for a multinational that allowed to fly business class for intercontinental client trips. It must have been some accountant worrying that employees could trade the ticket in, fly coach, and pocket the money, because the policy stated that the boarding passes needed to be included in the expense report. Since people hated to spend $610K USD on a ticket and get reimbursed a month later once they could produce boarding passes, they all bought their tickets at the last minute, thus paying $10-15K. This is the economic lesson. People respond to incentives. So the company ended up overpaying for plane tickets because it didn't trust the employees. The policy changed when people started using electronic boarding passes and forgot to ask for paper ones. Genius bean counters must have found significant savings in the average flight costs, but probably they were too dumb to figure it out. Keep crushing my food. I'll return the favor with interest. Saw another post here that reminded me of this one. TLDR at the bottom. The company I worked for at the time had vending machines that were paid for with company cards topped up with a daily allowance with any excess spending being deducted from your salary. The prices were at cost to the business, so it was cheap, convenient, and free, unless you were greedy. One of the items in the vending machine was the lovely Kinder Bueno, both milk and white chocolate versions. Me and a colleague, A, would almost always buy these if they were in stock because they're an incredible invention to all of chocolate kind. They are, however, very fragile, and another colleague, R, started making it a habit to crush them in some way whenever we bought them. R would hammer fist if we left them on the desk, slap it straight out of your hand while walking, and even a slap on the arse if you dared to put it in your back pocket. R figured that because they were basically free, that this was fine to do without replacing them, etc. A and I both disagreed and told him to stop because it's annoying and technically not free if we keep having to buy replacements, but R continued anyway. On to the MC. One day the vending machines got stocked with massive bags of crisps, so we bought a big bag of Quavers, and of course our beloved Buenos. R crushed the Buenos, laughed and carried on working like nothing happened. He went for lunch, and A had had enough and was genuinely pissed off at this point, so he told me his plan. We both opened the Quavers, crushed them into dust, and then poured each bag into his jacket pockets, which was hanging on the back of his chair, and zipped them back up. End of the day comes around, and he shuts down his laptop, puts on his jacket, and goes to put his hands in his pockets as we sit there smiling and giggling a bit. At first he thinks the big prank was that we'd zipped up the pockets, so he's also smiling as that would be a harmless little inconvenience. Then he puts his hands in his pockets, frowns, and then pulls them out to find them absolutely covered in Quaver dust. We erupt in laughter. He asks us what was the reason for doing it, and I just said, "Leave our fucking Buenos alone." A moment of silence, realization, and then a defeated sigh. Truce? Truce. The next time we got a Bueno, he visibly thought about doing it, then remembered the Culver incident and pulled himself back. We laugh about it now, and it definitely served its purpose as our Buenos were safe for the next 2 years of working there. TLDR, coworker kept crushing our Kinder Buenos. We crushed 2 massive share bags of Quavers and poured them in his jacket pockets. Opinions wanted. Parents who do not want to leave their children anything. I had a conversation with my mom, who I have since gone no contact with after she acted like a complete fool at my wedding and leading up to it. Drunk, crying, mad at me for not catering to her needs, etc., about her plans for retirement. She had stage 1 breast cancer, and I felt optimistic about the treatment plan. She was pissed that I was not crying and doomsdaying her diagnosis. There is long history of shit with her, but I was indifferent by this point. Anyway, her original plan was to leave me money, but only if I would agree to be her caretaker. I said, "I am not going to agree to this. We are not at that point, and I'm not making promises." She then said, "You know I've been thinking about it, and my friends agree that we shouldn't leave our kids money. We should spend it on ourselves enjoying life." I told her, "It's your life. If that's what you need to do, I don't care." And you know what? I really don't care. I don't need or want my mom's dirty money. She is terrible with money, and candidly, I'm in a more stable financial position than she is. I saw another Reddit thread of a boomer woman who doesn't want to leave her daughter anything, and most of her followers agreed. What are y'all's thoughts on the matter? Confession. I never told anybody but wanted to talk about. A few years ago, I was seriously planning a series of Unalived. For context, let's just say a lot happened to me from early childhood to my mid-teens that I don't want to get into, but you can probably guess. And it made me grow up hateful, angry, and with violent thoughts. Ever since I was a teen, I was obsessed with the idea of growing up to be a serial killer. Fast forward years later, and those thoughts still come, especially when I'm hurt or going through shit. I wanted to act on them, but didn't want to lose my freedom or hurt an innocent person. So I came up with the idea of using dating apps, pretending to be a minor to bait predators, then going to their house and unalive them, staging it as a suicide. One time I even had the perfect setup and knew exactly how to get away with it, but I never went through with it. This was 4 years ago now. Nothing ever came of it because I got too paranoid and backed out. I knew it was too risky, and that I'd never get laid again if I served a life sentence, so I guess my dick saved me. Don't steal from the unalived. Years ago, there was a farmer called Buck, and the thing about Buck was that he was obsessed with getting money. He'd lie, steal, and cheat to get it, and the one person who he wanted to get money off of was his dad. As his dad owned the farm, he was fairly rich, and he had a safe that everyone saw inside some way or another, and everyone knew there was a few £1,000s in there. This was in the 60s, so A, it'll be more today, B. The money was different back then, remember this. The problem was, Buck knew the combination but couldn't take the money as his dad would know, so Buck had to wait for the perfect opportunity. Sadly, one day, Buck's father ended up passing away now. The only part of the story I don't have a clear recollection of is if Buck waited till after the funeral to open the safe, or if he found his dad unalived and went to open the safe. But in the end, Buck opened the safe after his father's passing. Now, his dad must have had the best sense of humor and the knowledge he was going to die, because instead of finding the thousands in the safe, he found a single £1 note, propped up in an arch so it was standing, staring Buck in the face. Side story, after everyone found out that the safe was empty, everyone wanted to know where the money was, as everyone saw that it was full, until one day, Tom, one of the farmers, said that the dad hid it down the well, but secretly watching to see who'd jump down he well first as he'd made that up. The One and Only Neighbor, Part 2. After that short conversation, I didn't see her for quite a while. Sometimes I could smell cigarette smoke and assumed it was her. A few days ago, I bumped into her in the hallway and casually asked if she smoked. She said no, with a straight face. I laughed and told her to be a good neighbor and give me some company while I smoked, but again she insisted she doesn't. An hour later, there was a knock on my door. To my surprise, it was her asking for a cigarette. We went to the balcony, and that turned into our very first real chat. We spoke about friends, social circles, lifestyle, everything and nothing, for almost 3 hours. By the time we wrapped up, it was late, and we both headed back to our rooms. Not long after, maybe half an hour, she knocked again, this time holding 2 glasses of juice. I invited her in and gave her space to sit. She seemed nervous. I asked why, but she stayed quiet for a moment before asking, "Can I trust you?" I told her yes. Then she looked at me and asked, "Can we do it?" I said yes, but added, "I'll give you time to change your mind, only until I lock the door." I put on a song, and as we listened, I slowly moved closer, holding her hand. Just as the song was about to end, I locked the door and leaned in for our first kiss. I fucked my cute tenant. Our house has additional rooms available for tenants. One of those tenants was a girl who got introduced me via a friend. She was already living elsewhere, but her workplace was far from her location, so she was looking around her workplace. My friend suggested her that I have a room available. First time she talked to me. She was already giving flirty eyes. She looked out the rooms, and few days later, finally she moved in. She used to call me in any inconveniences we started talking. After few dats, she opened up and told her desires of doing multiple things, including naughties. She was a virgin. We flirted. One day I was alone in the house, and she was too. I was talking to her and casually said, "Keep her door open." I barged in when other tenants were not present and locked the door from inside. She was surprised and taken aback. I said hi and pulled her close to me by the waist and started making out in her room, pushed her on the walls and started spanking her and squeezing both her ass and boobs. She was a slim girl, didn't have much assets, but was grope able to squeeze her ass and pull her hair. I started unbuttoning her shirt and took her hand and placed it on my dick. She started rubbing it rigorously while I was unbuttoning her. She was topless now. I sucked on her one nipple and pinched the other. ND, she was already moaning while rubbing me off. I pulled her skirt down and I was rubbing her pussy over the panties. She was wet. Already, I fingered her without taking her panties off. She was on heavens and my fingers were soaked. She pulled my knickers down. I took my dick to her face, but she was new and was very hesitant to blow me. I tried, but she was not ready, so I left it and I was fingering her. She didn't have a bed, but a mattress only. So I put her down on the mattress and penetrated slowly. I had a condom on. She was tight and wet. She started moaning loudly. I held her mouth so that her voice didn't go outside and forced myself in her. It was in, and she moaned with heavy breath. I fucked her slowly and cowgirl for a little, but then I sped up. She started screaming. I kept her mouth shut. After 5, 6 minutes, she stood up and her legs started shaking. I asked her if she's okay. She said yes, but needed a break. I started caressing her, and then a few minutes of making out later, I fucked her in. Doggy slowly spanked her ass continued, and that was where she was screaming when I started going fast. And my hands were covering her mouth. Fucked her badly. My dick was wet of her vagina. Few minutes later, she pushed herself out of grip and started shaking. That's where I fucked her in missionary. She was gripping my back hard. I was feeling her nails engraving in my skin, but I kept on going until I came. I fell on her and she took a breath. When it was over, we both were sweating a lot. I pulled myself out and removed the condom. It was filled with cum and my dick was limpy. We took breath, drank water. I smoked a cigarette. We cuddled for some time, listened to music while our naked bodies were touching each other. I started groping her again and playing with her pussy again, and 10, 15 minutes later I was up again, and we again fucked for round 2. She was exhausted at the end and she said not anymore. She wore her panties back and we just cuddled after 5-7 minutes of cuddling. I was up again, but she was tired and it was paining her. She said so. I stopped, just smoked cigarette, and then we dressed up. I asked her to go outside and see if it's okay for me to go out. I went out and we fucked again for a few days later. A bit long, but I thought I'll give the reader a visual representation of what happened. Give it a read and do let me know your thoughts. I appreciate all your upvotes. My friend masturbated while I was asleep. My friend and I are both ex-Muslims, but we have different upbringings. She grew up in a predominantly Muslim country and was raped by a family member. Her family knew and they did nothing. I think she hates Islam because of that. I grew up with a non-religious family, however I am completely sympathetic and feel for her, but she has a complicated relationship with naughties. She is very hypersexual, masturbates a few times a day, and will have withdrawals if she does not have naughties or masturbate. Sometimes she will say jokes to me like she will flick my bean, and at first it was funny. But sometimes I feel like if I gave her the opportunity, she would have naughties with me. Sometimes I look in her eyes and I can see lust in them. One night she was drinking and came to bed. She told me she was very horny but could not have naughties because she was on her period. We moved on and both fell asleep, but I woke up to her fingering herself. I think she was drunk still, but I lay frozen. I didn't know what to do. I know she has a fucked up relationship with naughties, but this was too much for me. I don't understand how people function. Okay, but hear me out. Karen goes into a fast food restaurant to yell at a guy just doing his job. Karen makes $100K plus a year, devout Christian, does not abuse drugs. Jeffany works a 9, 5, clearly struggling financially, works out in the mornings, has a skincare routine at night, keeps her house clean, tells stories to her kids at night, cooks in the evening, is nice to everyone she comes in contact with. What am I missing? Asterisk confidence? No. Total douchebaggery? Possibly. Skills? Yes. Dedication? Sure. It just seems like everyone in the world has something I don't. Maybe it's because I see Jeffany making TikToks, probably made bank recording Karen in public, but the two are fine. Some dude I know worked for a fast food restaurant for less than $13 an hour the majority of his life. Another woman walked to my workplace for $8 an hour for a decade. She didn't have a car and refused to have anyone drive her. Healthy, but damn. I know people with college degrees living with their parents in trailer parks. It's just hard to believe if you're born in one of these places that you'll ever make it out. The people that get to go on TikTok and talk about it to large audiences are already succeeding. They already made it out. Every form of media I consume is of someone who made it out. Most people die here. Most people do not and never will make $100K a year in the US. Statistically, I'm fucked. It's like being on a deserted island. Oh, this reel will distract me. It doesn't get better. It probably isn't getting better for Jeffany either, but she seems pretty happy on the surface. But I'm expected to lie or believe someone qualified enough to tell me reality isn't a complete hellhole against the common interests of humanity, It's a beautiful place to live. For fuck's sake, how could anyone actually sane function and exist in this world? It sucks. If you're sane, you already know it sucks. Scroll a sub about suicide. People are in need of desperate help every day. Someone commits suicide every 11 minutes as a complete act of complete desperation, something that none of us living folk would have the balls to do. So how the fuck can you look at the world and continue to function in it? The only logical conclusions are lying to yourself, having no other choice, distraction. How Karen of Hamburg took the kids and is now on trial. I came across this story of a steakhouse entrepreneur from Hamburg, Germany, who seems to take the trope of the entitled narcissistic mum and ex-wife to the extreme. When Mrs. Block's kids visited their dad in Denmark, they stayed there instead of returning, very possibly because they didn't want to return to their mum, who, as a daughter describes, treated them like crap. Following that, Christina Block and her new boyfriend apparently decided it would be a wonderful idea to send some goons to Denmark. When the kids celebrated New Year and watched the fireworks on the docks, those masked gentlemen appeared, beat the crap out of the father, and abducted the kids to bring them to their mum. Of course, now she denies everything and tries to blame anyone, even claiming at some point her henchmen acted by themselves and on no one's orders. The links provide more info and lead to the English translations of the German news articles. Just unbelievable what some people think they can do to their own family members, even the young ones, because they got some more euros than the average person. Trial of Christina Block for abducting her kids by force. https://www.ndr-dot-translate.google/nacrictin/hamburg/process-ist-gestart@comma block-114.html?x_x_tr_sl $D$X_T$R_X_TR_X_TL=D&X_X_TR_PTO=WAP. Christina Block's daughter describing her mum's parenting. https://www.ndr-dot-translate.google/nacrictin/hamburg/102.html?x_TR_S=L=D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X_X_TR_D&X my apartment about 21 years ago. I was 24 back then and was living in a 18 apartment building, probably made of cardboard and paper because the soundproofing was awful. I had this old lady and her husband as a next-door neighbor. Once in a while, she would call the cops on me for noise disturbance while I was listening to some music or watching a movie. Each and every time the cops arrived, they were forced to admit that my volume was not high enough for an actual complaint, but they still asked me if I could turn it down a little. This happened a good dozen times before I got pissed and asked the policemen if they were allowed to ticket someone for repeatedly bothering them for nothing. They didn't really answer, but I could tell that it was making them think a lot. That was the last time I saw the police at my door from that old B** teach. Weeks later, the janitor told me she told him that she got a huge fine for bothering the police with false accusations. Justice served. Edit. Typos. Okay, let's call the park officer. This happened July 4th weekend. I am a member and have a place in a self-contained camp community. Nice quiet place with a lake and pools and a restaurant and things like that. I love it because my kid can be a kid like I was and go wander with friends and disappear until dinner time, and I don't have to worry. Our place is on a small cul-de-sac that is grassed in, and we use it for kids to play and set up cornhole and all that. Because it's July 4th, a bunch of people have guests, so the park is more full than normal, and a guest of someone on the circle parked at the edge of the grass. Well, my kid and another kid were playing catch, and one of the kids missed the ball, and it hit the parked car. Owner of the car comes out hot and going at the kids. Me and the other kid's parent both go over to calm the situation. Obviously, if there's damage, we'll take care of it because it's from our kids. But this guy starts going off about all these dents and this big scratch and a crack in the windshield, and all this is the kid's fault. I was willing to be reasonable, but when you start saying you want a ton of extra work done trying to blame my kid, I get a little less reasonable. So we're going back and forth, and then he says the magic word that if we aren't willing to pay for everything, he's going to call the park safety office to come deal with it. Knowing where this was going, I smiled and said, yes, okay, let's do that. So the officer comes out, and to no one's surprise, but this guy, the area his car is parked is a no parking area. So not only does the officer tell him to deal with it, because if he had followed the rules and parked in an actual parking zone, this wouldn't have happened. And because they guy told him he'd been parked there for 2 days with no issues before now, he got a nice fat ticket and order to move his car. He turned bright red, but didn't say another word, and moved his car, and we didn't see or hear from him the rest of the weekend. For certain services, after a 20 to 25% base, the rest of my tip is heavily dependent on our conversation. For example, when I get my nails refilled, I'll tip a 25% base, 20% plus 5% to compensate my technician for at least one bloody cuticle. I love chatting during my appointments, so I'll ask about weekend plans or something more specific if I've seen a technician in the past. If we carry on past small talk, that's awesome. I love hearing about their lives and passions. At that point, we're well into the 50% range. Anything additional is based on how interesting and or peculiar the conversation becomes. Recently, a technician told me that she's gifted with second sight, which allows her to see auras and speak with the unalived. I had so many questions, many of which she answered. She told me about my aura, purple and blue, her experience growing up with second sight, how she uses it to heal and help others, how she perceives others, and the deceased people with whom she speaks. Of course, I have my doubts, but that doesn't matter. It was such a pleasure to listen to her. I don't know her well enough to confidently say that she was being completely truthful, but even if it was an elaborate lie, I have no regrets about tipping 200%. That was one of the most enthralling 90 minutes of 2025. My aunt tried to play matchmaker for my mom at her own wedding. I hope they end up together. So last month we had my mom's little sister's wedding. It was her second marriage, and honestly, it was such a vibe. Beachside, super fun, games, dancing, all the joy you'd want at a wedding. My aunt, the bride, decided she was going to play matchmaker for my mom, 46, divorced for 11 years. She has this best friend, a guy, and literally set up a wedding game where my mom and him ended up dancing together. Not just a quick little dance, either. They were laughing and dancing for like 15 minutes straight. And it wasn't forced or cringy. It actually looked really natural and fun. Then later, during another game, think pass the orange but with a coconut from chin to chest, only the grown-ups played, and yes, my mom and this guy were part of it. Everyone was cracking up, but you could tell my aunt was loving her little matchmaking plan unfold. Honestly, I thought it was kind of sweet. My mom was genuinely enjoying herself, and I low-key want them to end up together. My aunt and mom probably joked about it later, sisters talk, but I can't help wondering if anything more happened between them that night. Actually, I really do want my mom to date and maybe marry him. They looked so good together, and I loved seeing them as a couple. Plus, he was genuinely nice to me too. So today I'm actually going to meet my aunt, and you know I'm going to dig for some info about this guy. She's the type who would spill every detail if she thinks it might lead to a love story, LOL. Honestly, I think she'd be over the moon if my mom and him ended up together. And selfishly, I'd be kinda hyped too, because that means I'd finally have a football buddy to play with and stay up watching matches till midnight. Let's see what she says. I lie about being allergic to alcohol because I don't trust myself when I drink. I, 31F, tell people I'm allergic to alcohol. I'm not. There's no rash, no swelling, no ER visit, but the reaction is real, just not physical. When I drink, I become someone else. Not in a fun, party animal way. In a dark, reckless, I might not make it home kind of way. It's like my brain turns off the second the alcohol hits my bloodstream, and some ancient hurt takes the wheel. I've woken up in strangers' beds not remembering how I got there. I've walked down freeways at 3 a.m. I've sobbed in public bathrooms while texting people who blocked me years ago. I've been taken advantage of more than once and convinced myself I deserved it because, well, I was drunk. So I stopped. Cold turkey 2 years ago, but I hated the conversations it brought up, the questions, the pity, the oh, come on, just one drink. So now I just say I'm allergic. No one argues with allergies. Sometimes I miss it. I miss the warmth in my chest, the confidence, the fake joy. But I don't miss the danger. I don't miss the shame. I still go to bars. I still order cranberry soda with lime and pretend it's a cocktail. I still laugh along when people say, God, I'd die without wine. And inside, I think, I nearly did. My father places hidden cameras around the house. It all started with my father trying to hide a camera in my room without telling anyone that he had put it there. After an exhausting conversation with him, he finally removed the camera. But literally a week ago, I found a small camera in the bathroom, hidden in a face mask can, in which he made a small hole. When I talked to him about it, he said that it was a jamming module, and he was checking how it works in a damp room. But there was definitely a camera in the can. I'm worried that he might also set up hidden cameras around the house and spy on me. My father is an asshole in general. This is not his first idiotic act, but it is because of this act that I can no longer sleep normally and be at home. I was already paranoid, and now this. I'm 17 and I currently live in Russia. I will only enter university in a year. There is no way to move out. I talked to my mother about this. She said, either we endure or we move to our hometown. And my hometown is in the Luhansk region. If I move there, I will lose all my friends and the opportunity to enter a good university. Plus, it is not safe at all there. Please give me advice on what can be done about this, but somehow suing him is not an option. We now live in a good city only on his money, and my mother's salary is not enough for anything. I'm using Google Translate. English is not my first language. Serve pizza while hopping on one leg? Got it. Back in the early 2000s, I was a waiter at a famous red-roofed pizza shack. It was back before they went downhill and closed the dining rooms. One night, the teenage dishwasher got caught selling weed to other employees and was fired on the spot by the newly minted manager who wasn't much older. No one was tasked with doing dishes after that, and the bus tubs of dishes were piling up and people started setting them on the floor. I went back to set some dishes on the pile, turned to go back to the dining room, and twisted my knee when my leg got lodged in between two bus tubs on the floor. I heard a crunch and fell. I sat on the floor in pain and then tried to get up and put weight on it with little success. The young manager saw me and told me that I had to continue serving pizza because I was the only waiter and I would be fired if I didn't. So I hopped. From the kitchen window to the tables, serving every pizza. Customers asked what happened and I told them that and why I was still serving while hopping. They were angry and one confronted the manager. Finally, I got sick of the hopping and called my girlfriend to come get me. On the way out the door, the manager said, "You better get a doctor's note," and I left. So I went to the ER, and I ended up having a torn meniscus and ACL damage. I lawyered up since I knew it was a sure bet, and a year and a half later I won a $10,000 settlement from the company. The first thing I did when I cashed that check was have a huge pizza party with all my friends in that same restaurant. That manager was there, giving me stink eye the whole time. I ruined the whole surprise. Guys, I did a dumb thing and I don't know how to feel. I'm pregnant with baby number 2 and I have a boy currently. My husband and I definitely don't want more kids. So baby number 2 is it for us. He's scheduling a vasectomy. My gender reveal is Sunday, and I asked my friend to be the keeper of the gender, but obviously I have access to my results via NIPT to my email. I wanted a girl because something I read forever ago made me realize what I'd miss out on having just boys. Just stuff like being in the room for my daughter during her children's birth or wedding dress shopping or stuff that a girl needs her mom for. So basically I had anxiety, and I looked at the results. I wanted to know because I don't want to be one of those people that react in a horrible way during a gender reveal. I looked at the results, and it's a boy. I cried. I think I can be okay at the reveal now that I know, but I feel so guilty for having these feelings and for ruining the surprise for myself. I will, of course, love my son, but I just can't shake the feeling of knowing I'll never have a daughter now. Married 14 years, never seen wife naked. So, like the title says, I've been married 14 years, and have still never seen my wife naked. She's extremely self-conscious, and even though I absolutely love her body, and she should too, I still can only see her with clothes on. I never thought I'd be this age, married this long, and still having to mentally undress her. But here we are. Naughty's attempts, and I use this term generously, can only occur in pitch darkness. Any hope of looking into her eyes is not possible. I've only really gotten it in once or twice in that time anyway, though. Usually it's just painful mashing. We can't use lube because that's gross, and only she can initiate. My feelings do not matter at all. And attempts only occur maybe once every other month anyway. It's totally duty naughties so she can lay there and check the box. What I would give for even one time with some passion, to feel wanted, to feel like she wanted it too. We didn't even get that on our honeymoon. 0 naughties at all then. She didn't feel like it that week. I should have gotten an annulment immediately. I now understand why people cheat. So yeah, that's my secret. People think we have this great life, and in reality it's just misery, and my feelings like I have no say in our relationship and I should just be happy to be married or something. What a joke.